This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and Robert Daws.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Partners in Crime. Bob waving at the camera there for our Patreon subscribers. More on that later. Yeah. Creaky chair's back as well.
You've got a creaky chair
this time.
Because you've oiled my leg.
I oiled your leg, yes.
Take that as you will.
More on that later.
And the reason I'm waving is because I've gone all visual. I realise that most of the time, if you look at this, I'm just sitting there with a cup of coffee going slurp, which is the way. This is basically the style in which I podcast. And that's why I always say it's better just to listen than to watch. But no, that's not necessarily the case because people like watching you.
Yes, and then we get money.
Do we?
Well, not really, but
keeps all this from me, you see. Right.
You may have noticed we're starting quite chipper and chirpy, and I think really we have to.
Yes.
We often say a lot changes in a week, and boy does it.
Yes.
Last week the coronavirus COVID-19 was a thing. It was of concern. This week it's very much a thing. It's
a week is a long time with pandemics.
Yes. I mean, I know we got listeners all over the world. We don't need to tell everyone what coronavirus is. I think everybody knows by now. But things have changed in different countries, and we are now being told to work from home here in the UK, which of course doesn't really make a huge amount of difference to me. In your evening job, obviously it does.
Well, yes, I'll get into that in a second. But why am I the one who's not working? I'm working at your home. That's where the studio is, of course. But we've decided, we had a health and safety check yesterday, didn't we? And said, shall we just continue or shall we take a chance? And we haven't taken a chance, really. I've been let in through the back door and sprayed. I've washed my hands 3 times. The coffee has been filtered to within an inch of its life, and so basically I'm hopefully sort of no great threat. I'm trying not to touch any surfaces. My bottom's on the chair. That's about it. So yeah,
I mean we are both pretty much isolated anyway, because obviously
That's because we're sad people.
Well, I mean, you're not working in the evenings anyway, obviously, because the shows are off. So you're now working from home. You're doing your performances in your kitchen, I understand.
Well,
so your cats.
On Saturday, no, they've had enough of that. No, on Saturday night I was on stage, and none of us realised that it would be our last performance. We were supposed to be finishing the tour at the end of next week in Brighton, that lovely theatre down there, but it was not to be. So it's, I mean, that's a small thing, really, apart from the simple fact that it's brought a lot of people who are going on to other jobs and various other things, which I'm included. That's all stopped, but that is the vulnerability of the freelance world, I fear. But yes, chaos is around us. I think people are being very good on the whole and being very calm when they're not snatching vast tons of blue paper from the local supermarkets. But I think this is a changing scenario, as we're constantly told, and everyone's sort of apprehensive, to say the very least. And whatever our problems are personally, we know hopefully that there will be support from us, from those around us, and we'll get through it. But it's at the moment it's taking its toll on people's livelihoods, and they're worried. Well, not only worried for themselves, but worried for the elderly people in their lives and what have you. So it's a big life-changing thing which we're all having to adapt to worldwide.
Yeah, we're keeping very much abreast of the situation. So we're both healthy as things stand. We are not personally in risk groups, although we understand very well that we aren't the problem. It's the people that it could pass on to that is the issue. As things stand, government advice means we can carry on as we are, but we probably, let's face it, probably won't be in the same room this time next week doing this show, I imagine. May well be, we don't know, but we do have contingency plans in place. We will, in some form or another, be carrying on. We're well aware, Bob and I had a chat about this yesterday, we do have a lot of elderly listeners. We have a lot of people who are very worried, who are perhaps disabled, who stay at home a lot anyway, and of course even more people will be staying at home a lot more. Some people being told to stay at home for 3 or 4 months. So I mean, even before this kicked off, we were acutely aware that our podcast was what a lot of people look forward to at the end of every week. And we know because you email us and you tell us and you get hold of us on social media and you tell us what this podcast means to you. So we will endeavour to bring you a show each and every week in some form or another. It will probably likely take the form of us both recording remotely from our own houses. We are getting equipment and things and systems set up so that Bob can do his bits at his house and me here, much the same as the guest specials, for example, when we have Adrian Hobart, when he sometimes is guest presenter. He is in his studio at home, I'm in my studio here, and we do it down the line and we stitch it together afterwards, and it works well. It does mean a massively increased workload from my point of view, to the point where remote episodes take about 3 or 4 times as long in production as kind of an in-studio episode. But it's there are people who are going to have far bigger problems as a result of this coronavirus than that, so that is absolutely fine for me. And I think the main thing is that we are,
basically we'll keep going as long as we can.
Yeah, we'll keep going for you, essentially, as long as you want us to keep going.
And we are, and we are very grateful that you're listening in, and when we really sincerely send you all best wishes in these worrying times, and let us know how you feel, and let us know what how you're getting through it, and what you're reading, because let's face it, I think there's going to be, for a lot of us, a lot more time to indulge in one of our favourite pastimes. That's reading books, of course. Yes, it does.
Of course, a lot of people are going to be worried about money, especially if they don't know if they're going to have jobs to go back to. But
I'm one of them.
There we are. Yeah. But if you can, please do keep reading. Please do keep buying authors' books. Of course, we will be there. We work from home anyway, so we will be there to help you through that. If money's a concern, then of course you do have the benefit as a Partners in Crime listener of your Kobo discount codes. If you haven't used it before, now might be a very good time to do so. If you go to kobo.com, choose a book of your choice, and if you enter the promo code CRIME at the checkouts, then the lovely guys at Kobo will give you 90% off of your first purchase from them. You don't need an e-reader or anything, by the way. A tablet or a mobile phone will do. You've got the free Kobo app for those. And if you've used your Crime promo code, then use the link in our show notes and use the promo code PARTNERS at the checkout, and they'll give you 40% off of all of your purchases moving forward, which should hopefully make things a little more bearable. Bob, you mentioned the fact that we were on camera. You were waving at the start of the show.
I'm waving now.
For any of you who missed last week's show, we are now recording every episode, and that is, as in video-wise, and that is available exclusively to our top-tier subscribers on Patreon, which we'll get to in a little bit. People who watched last week's episode in the Patreon channel, a couple of listeners got in contact and wondered why I had a yellow coat hanger hanging up in the background.
Did you have a yellow?
Yes, last week. Yeah, just over there, hanging on the guitar peg.
Okay, can I ask the same question? Why did you have a yellow coat hanger?
Because I'm a writer, and I generally sit around in my scruffs, sometimes barely dressed at all.
Yes, well, we've had long conversations about that,
which is absolutely fine normally. And,
from where you're sitting.
I was barely dressed a lot of the time when you came over as well. But now we're recording things, and the general public are able to see it. I figured that I should at least have a couple of shirts down here in the office that I can put on when we're videoing. So you'll notice as well that I'm sitting here in my cargo shorts with paint splashes down them.
They can't quite see those, and
a nice smart shirt on top.
It's just as well, isn't it? Yeah. Let's face it, it's just as well.
It's like BBC Newsreader style. He might as well be naked under the table.
Well, you might as well. It might as well be. So yes, well, I've got my bowler hat and Crombie coat outside, hanging there quite neatly in the traditional way. But yes, well, I have to admit that I have noticed an upgrade in your general appearance since we've actually gone on camera.
Well, put a camera in front of me and I suddenly make an effort.
Yes, I mean he's not wearing makeup exactly, but I think we're literally days away from that happening.
I can do digital retouching for that one, so we're fine.
When we turn up and he's wearing a toupee, that's when we've got to worry.
Yeah.
The full Burt Reynolds.
On the Patreon thing, we've something else we've launched for our Patreon subscribers is a free book of the month every month. So wonderfully supplied by Kobo again, so it will be usually from an author you might not know, so that you can help discover new authors, give them a bit of a platform.
Yes,
and we can give our wonderful subscribers a little something else as well. And we are ready to announce April's book of the month. We're gonna name that now.
Good, because I'm really interested to see what it is.
Well, there's still a week or two to go, but we could at least start pushing it, I suppose. Now, bear in mind you can't claim this until April, and unless you are a Patreon subscriber. So we're just letting you know what it's going to be. It's a wonderful book actually from a brand new author, debut book from Mary Chong called Murder and Malpractice. It's got a wonderful original concept. It's a great book. It's had some fantastic reviews. I'll read a little bit of the blurb. Fragile general practitioner Dr. Cathy Morland was unaware that a deadly malice stalks the corridors of her busy doctor's surgery. It would prove more malign and dangerous than any disease she and her colleagues had ever encountered. How's that for timely? Having just returned to work after a nervous breakdown, the last thing Dr. Cathy Morland expected was to witness a gruesome murder, especially during morning surgery. Horrifyingly, the victim is one of her own practice partners, found poisoned and dying in his consultation room. Cathy is forced to investigate when suspicion falls on her revered senior partner, but she must be quick before the killer strikes again. There we go. How's that for timely? Deadly diseases and murder. So yes. That's Murder and Malpractice by Mary Chong. If you want to get that book completely free, then you need to be a Patreon subscriber of ours. That book is going to be free to all patrons on our middle and top tiers, which starts from just £2, and that book itself is usually $3.99 at Kobo, so you're getting that at half price straight away, plus you get a free book every month for the rest of the year. So that's that for a good deal.
Well, I think it's an excellent deal. But at the same time, if you're not on our top and middle tier, if you're a Chuckle Brothers, or if you're not on the what do you call it, Patreon. If you're not a patron here, it doesn't matter. We love you just as much.
Oh yeah.
It's just we found a way to actually just give a little bit extra for those who are really interested. And if you're not, great. If you just tune in, listening to us bantering away, we're delighted about that too. So we haven't forgotten you. No one is more special than anyone else on Partners in Crime.
The usual free Partners in Crime stuff is not changing. In fact, there'll be more coming on that front too. As you say, this is just something a little bit extra for those who are able to give back. So, and speaking of which, we're going to name some of those people. They get a shout out as part of their patronage. There's been quite a few, so we're going to do rather than doing them all in one go, we're going to do a batch this week and a batch in the following weeks, mainly because when you do these things, apparently you get a bit of a wave when you start up, a bit of a surge of new people, and then it trickles through. So rather than naming loads today and then doing one a week from then on, we'll try and taper off with it. We might not have much else to talk about, what with the forthcoming apocalypse. So
that's bleak.
I know. It's got to have some gallows humour, haven't we? So thank you to the patrons who signed up in the last week, to Alison Waterfield, to Helen Weir, Judith Waterhouse, Karen McLean, Caroline Slavitska, hope I've pronounced that right, Kieran Sims, Leslie, she's so good she doesn't need a surname, Lisa Bolis, Matilda Bailey, and Simon Watts. Thank you very much,
fantastic guys. That's absolutely lovely, and thank you. Welcome to our welcome to our what do you call it now? You call
Patreon.
Patreon.
I'm going to paint it on the wall for next week.
I see it, I said it last week. I see sort of a Roman soldier in a square with whatever, the Patreon squad or whatever it is. Anyway, that's
what we can call the people who are in it, the Patreon squad.
Oh, the Patreon squad. What a very good idea. It doesn't miss a trick.
No, but if you do want to
be part of the Patreon squad,
if you do want to be part of the Patreon squad, then you can do so from £1. You get lots of extra stuff. You get to see our video. You get to watch each episode rather than just listening to it. You get entered into free prize draws. You're giving away things like e-readers and theatre tickets, which are frankly worthless at the moment. Yes. Hopefully in a few months' time, might be useful.
Hopefully it'll be back in fashion again, and more to the point, you'll be able to go. But anyway, that's a wonderful list of people, and to Helen and Lisa and Alison, who I know have been abroad and were trying to get back. I hope you've landed safely and are now sort of in splendid isolation in your homes, if that's the case. But it probably isn't.
You've got lots of wonderful Patreon content to be getting through in your isolation time, and we are going to put up as many kind of videos and things as we can in there to keep you entertained over the coming weeks. Right, on to some news then. And again, getting slightly political, I suppose, but with a good reason now. The Chancellor of the Exchequer announced last week that he's scrapping VAT on ebooks. So from the 1st of December, 20% VAT on all ebooks in the UK will be scrapped. I think since 1973 we've had no VAT on print books.
Right.
But we've had VAT on ebooks since their
What
invention.
does that mean to readers and writers?
To readers, it means the price of some books might go down because they're already quite low cost anyway. Some of them might not go down because if they drop them by another £1, that would actually be more than the 20% that they're getting back in VAT, if that makes sense. Right. But at the very least, it means that the authors and the creators will get a bit more, the government coffers will get a bit less, and the readers could save some money as well.
Well, that is very good news, isn't it? I mean, that is very good news for everyone in books, because I mean these are, as we said, difficult times. I mean, one of the things I've noticed, the amount of things that are being cancelled left, right, and centre, understandably, but well in advance. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of literary festivals announcing cancellations all the way through to July. Yeah, really. So people, obviously, so that those sort of gatherings, which are so important, to readers and writers.
Segue on that point, actually, is that
thank God for that.
And we should let you know this, our appearance at the Earls Barton Literary Festival, performing Partners in Crime live, is off due to the coronavirus. That was news literally just in, so unfortunately we won't be doing that. We won't yet be announcing or confirming, for obvious reasons, our international Partners in Crime live show either, which is in another country, so what with air travel and things being severely restricted at the moment, that is unlikely to happen, but it is much later in the year, so hopefully that will still go ahead, but I won't say anything else on that.
Anyway, back to VAT. That's great. It doesn't mean that you sort of get an opportunity. They don't take 20 pages off your book as they used to. You just get 20 extra pages. Yeah, whatever. Well, that's great news. And
so either readers will save money, or the authors will get a bit more. And a lot of things.
What's the reason? How's that come about? There must have been pressure within the industry.
Yes. Yes. The Axe the Reading Tax campaign has been going on for quite a while. I've been a vocal supporter of that myself over the years. So many authors. Val McDermid, probably the biggest name of those, and she's been in the press quite a bit this week talking about that. But it's actually due to European Union legislation, funnily enough, which was passed in 2018, which said that member states could set their own VAT levels on electronic publications.
Right.
It's taken us 2 years to do it, but we have done it. Well, so as of the 1st of December, that will. And again, from an author's point of view, what a lot of readers and a lot of people don't realise is the average income, salary, if you like, for a published author. So this is somebody whose books are out there, they've got publishing contracts, they're in the major bookshops. The average income, I think, is a shade under £11,000 a year.
Yes.
So
again,
If an extra 20% on top of that, it's it's still going to be pitiful.
Actors, I have to say,
it?
can actually beat that. The average wage of an actor or performer in the country is £5,000 pounds a year. So I've heard many uncharitable people over the years say, well, you wanted to do it, should have gone into insurance like me, I'm just off to get my golf buggy, but I mean, that's not, if you do it, you do it.
I mean, who wants to come home from work at the end of the day, switch on Netflix and watch somebody doing insurance spreadsheets?
Yeah, well, I think it's different temperaments, different talents, and what have you. As Derek Jacobi once said to a group of young actors, if you want to do it, become an actor, this is, if you want to do it, don't. If you have to do it, then you don't even have to ask the question, you're doing it anyway. And I think that's something that a lot of people, whether they be writers or dancers or musicians or actors or whatever, sort of come across. And it is a precarious and difficult life, and you can't count on anything. But I think over the years, many what used to be established job for life professions have gone through similar things. That, there is no job for life anymore, and more people are on short-term contracts, and more people are freelancing to be able to carry out their career. And so it's something a lot of people understand in the way that probably they didn't in the past. But there we are. May the creative industries, which actually in this country alone, talking about theatre, cinema, and all music and all, I think, bring in £111.7 billion to this country. Yeah. And that's a figure that people don't know about. And when they're told, some people just won't believe it. They say, well, that's absolute rubbish. It's only ponching around on stage or whatever. They don't seem to realise that. That includes television and cinema, of course, and all those big things. So, it's an important industry. But at the moment, we're not on the front line like many of the people working in healthcare and hospitals and whatever, who I think are quite extraordinary people, and God bless them.
I mean, it reminds me of something, a little anecdote, which I'm going to completely balls up now.
I'm just going to sit here and watch this happen. And if you're watching it, look, I'm assuming the position.
It was, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm telling it anyway. It was during the Second World War. And let's face it, a lot of people have said this is like a war. It is a global war on this pandemic, on this virus.
Churchill's coming up now.
We're all in it together and all the rest of it. Yes, Churchill is coming up, don't worry. And while they were trying to sort out the wartime budget and where the money was going to come from, it was, of course, suggested, as it always is, that the arts was cut first. And Winston Churchill wasn't having any of it. He said, no, there's no way the arts are going to be cut. Defence ministers were saying, well, look, we need this for the war effort. We need this money to fight the war. The arts has to be cut. And Winston Churchill's response, allegedly, was, dear boy, what do you think we're fighting this war for?
Yes. What are we doing it for?
Yes, there you go.
Well, there we
go
are.
Out and buy books.
Very, very, very. Yes, it's apparently a true story, and
it is now.
Right, so moving on to other news. I've got a book. This is what we normally do, and I think we'd be remiss not to actually do some more recommendations.
Probably should talk about books, shouldn't we? Yeah.
Yeah, but anyone who has read the Kristina Ohlsson books, which are available on Kobo, of course, following the investigations of, I'll read you the synopsis of Unwanted. This may ring a bell for you because it's just been made into a television series, which is on Channel 4 on Walter Presents. I'll get onto that in a second. But Unwanted by Kristina Ohlsson. In the middle of a rainy Swedish summer, a little girl is abducted from a crowded train. Despite hundreds of potential witnesses, no one noticed when the girl was taken. Her mother, left behind at the previous station, alerted the crew immediately, but as the train pulled into Stockholm Central Station, the girl was nowhere to be seen. To Inspector Alex Recht of the Stockholm Police, this looks like a classic custody row, but none of the evidence adds up, and young investigative analyst Fredrika Bergman is convinced the case is far more complex than her boss is prepared to admit. So when the missing child is found dead in the far north of Sweden with the word Unwanted scribbled on her forehead, the rule book is finally thrown out of the window. Now on the trail of a ruthless murderer with a terrifying agenda, will Alex and Fredrika manage to put aside their differences and work together to find the killer before it's too late? A true Scandinavian page-turner, Unwanted is packed with suspense, authentic police procedure and psychological depth. Well, Unwanted is part of a series of books following the investigations of Bergman and Recht, which include Silenced and Chosen and The Disappeared, Hostage, and what have you. I've read... which one have I read? I've read Hostage. That's it, but that was... a little while ago.
You're coughing. Do I need to self-isolate?
No, you don't. This is my asthma.
Oh.
You know, and this is...
Are you in a risk group then?
No, I suppose I am in a way. Oh, God, I hadn't thought of that. Yes, no, this is my asthma. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is not contagious. Not that you're going to catch it over the digital...
No,
I call them digital airways.
It's just me that's screwed.
No, yeah, good luck, mate. And no, I'm all right. If you get that, I have a little inhaler, and I've had this for years. I can get rid of it when I'm acting, strangely enough. Dr. Theatre or Dr. Camera takes over, but I do have a little... certainly in the mornings. Anyway, anyone who has the same thing with me will know what it is, but it's not at the moment corona.
I mean, smoking 120
virus.
a day probably doesn't help.
It doesn't help. It's very expensive. Anyway, back to Kristina Ohlsson, and it's a great read, but it's been turned into a television program, as I say, on Water, and I've seen the first 3. It's interesting. It hasn't got the best reviews. Well, it's got mixed reviews. Some people absolutely love it, and other people don't. I have to say I have enjoyed it. There are a couple of just 2 little plot things that I sort of queried in my head, but basically I found it very typical of the Scandinavian noir sort of style, and very, very interesting. There are 1 or 2 actors that turn up in it that one will recognise from other shows, Borgen and things like that. You realise there's a rep of actors up there who can go from one production to the next, which is, I'm sure, very, very pleasant. So yes, and the series is very good. As I say, it's running now, and the structure of it's quite interesting because they have 2 episodes for one investigation. And then another investigation which takes 2 episodes, but it's linked by an ongoing storyline, which is flash forwards, where you see conversations going on in the future, and then you go back to the past of the investigation. So that keeps the whole thing sort of connected, and I find that sort of structure very interesting. So I would say it's definitely worth a look-see. But get the book first, because several people have said that although they've enjoyed the television, the book is better, which brings up this perennial discussion we have of what's what, and, however. But get back to the books first, and so find the series and see what you think. I mean, I quite like actually reading the book first, establishing people in my own mind, and then if it's been adapted for television, having a look and see what they've done with it, and occasionally vice versa, which a lot of people do. So that is Stockholm Requiem is the name of the television series, and as I say, it's on at the moment and available on Catch Up in the UK on Channel 4, or if you get Walter Presents Worldwide, you'll find it there as well. And we'll get the books on Kobo.
Yes, do. The details there are in the show notes. In The Guardian this week, I noticed an article by Peter Swanson, who is a fantastic thriller writer himself. He was playing agony aunt, almost, because anonymous mother in Leicestershire wrote into The Guardian.
Anonymous mother?
As she does. She said, "My son is 17 and loves thrillers and crime novels. Can you recommend some classics that might appeal to him and some new titles too?" Peter Swanson grabbed the bull by the horns. He said, "I was once that 17-year-old obsessed by books and mostly drawn to tales of suspense." He says, "My favourites from that time were, in no particular order, the supremely chilling Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin, the non-stop action thriller First Blood by David Morrell," which he says was better than the film, And anything by Agatha Christie. He says, interestingly, seeing as it came up in last week's show, his favourite series character was the Boston-based private investigator Spencer, written by Robert B. Parker.
All right.
And he particularly recommends the 7th book in the series, Early Autumn. He also says you can't go wrong with Dick Francis.
You can't go wrong with Dick Francis, or indeed his son.
Yes.
Felix.
Yes, Felix
who
Francis.
continues the line, as you regular listeners well know.
Yeah. Go back in time. Not go back in time. Go back to our previous episodes. We interviewed him quite early on, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Go back in time if you can. That might be a good idea at the moment.
Yes.
Donna Tartt's The Secret History, which is about freshmen at a New England college who kill one of their classmates. He suggests Anthony Horowitz, not just for the Alex Rider books, but for adult thrillers as well. He particularly recommends Moriarty, and The Word is Murder. He says The Shining Girls by Lauren Bukes is about a serial killer who travels through time, if you want something a bit edgier. And he also suggests Stephen King, whose book 11/22/63 about the JFK assassination, he says was a suspense masterpiece. So if you're looking for some reads that are suitable perhaps for a 17-year-old to bring in the next generation of crime readers and hopefully partners in crime listeners, then there you go. There's some suggestions from Peter Swanson.
I've got a segue.
Go on.
I can't remember the last time I had a segue, and I'm going to just make myself comfortable and have it. A segue. You mentioned Stephen King.
Yes.
Now, as I mentioned on another episode, I've been following the TV adaptation of his The Outsider, which is, I think, being one of my favourite series of the year so far. Very well done. Directed by the extraordinarily talented Jason Bateman, and also he appears in it as well. It's terrifically done, and I was reading the other day that someone was saying that they think it's possibly the best adaptation of a Stephen King book that they've seen, and I would have to say I'd agree. It's for the most part it's police procedural with, of course, some much supernatural sort of pathways and storylines connecting all the police procedure to more mysterious and extraordinary things, but towards the end, I've just seen the last episode, it becomes pure Stephen King horror. And I think it's incredibly effective. So I've recommended it once. I recommend it again. It's a crime thriller. Well, yes. I mean, there's murder and there's police investigating it, so it does come under that header. But also has the added extraordinariness of Mr. King. And to compare and contrast, I also watched a film called Dr. Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining. And The Shining must be one of the greatest horror films ever made, and I have to say I didn't really think that Dr. Sleep worked nearly so well, certainly compared to having seen The Shining again recently and having just watched The Outsider, both of which are absolutely splendid, and by comparison I'm afraid I didn't think the film held up anywhere near as well. For people who find it interesting to compare and watch sequels and stuff, there's some moments in it that you'll go, oh, that's well done, that you make the connections. But as regards for something that is particularly thrilling or uncomfortable, it doesn't quite work. So anyway, that's my recommendation for Jason Bateman's brilliant take on The Outsider, and The Outsider, of course, is available on Kobo as a book. So again, get the book, watch the TV. At this moment in time, lots of us, for better or for worse, will have the time to do that. There we go.
Yeah, please do. If you've got friends who are isolating or who are not at work and won't be for the foreseeable, then do let them know about Partners in Crime. Let them know that we've got nearly 100 episodes that they can listen to. They've got nearly if they listen solidly without sleeping, they could listen for nearly a week. To Partners in Crime.
People are suffering enough at the moment in time. We don't want to impose that on them as well.
I know, but I mean, I've got, as you can see here, lots more news stories to get through, lots more things to talk about. There are lots we didn't get through today, but this would all go into our after show. Partners in Crime, Arsenic and Old Lace, which we are going to record now after another cup of tea. And you can watch that episode of Arsenic and Old Lace now if you are a Patreon subscriber on our Raoul. Don't hit the microphone.
I was dancing for that. You can't really pick that up if you're just listening to this in an audio capacity. I was actually trying to dance. A bit of a horror story in itself for anyone watching, but I banged my mic.
Yes. Anyway, Partners in Crime, Arsenic and Old Lace.
The shame of it.
You can watch now if you are on our Randall and Hopkirk Deceased tier. Head over to patreon.com/Partners in Crime podcast, I think. Or the show will be in the show notes here anyway. So go and check that out if you want more. We're going to go and get a cup of tea. We're not going to touch each other.
Cup of tea? What are you talking about?
I'll have a cup of tea. You can have a cup of coffee.
And we're still not going to touch each other.
We're still not going to touch each other. And then we're going to go and do Partners in Crime, Arsenic and Old Lace. How about that? Shall we?
Well, come on, stop it.
In all seriousness, everybody, please do look after yourselves. Do stay safe. Video episodes will still carry on. Partners in Crime will still carry on. It's just you might not get this same view of the two of us in the room together. It might be a split screen with us.
Split screen?
Yeah, you and your study at home on one side, me and mine at home on the other side.
Do you mean I've got to tidy it up and make it look as neat as yours?
You do, yes. I'm afraid so.
I don't know if I've got anywhere to put my yellow hanger.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and Robert Daws and produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Beisch. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.